Hey, Tricia.
Hey Meredith.
So we're here for this hackathon. I'm super excited, and we have three challenge questions. And here we're going to talk about challenge question number two, which we've kind of called random acts of trade. So we know that wildlife crime involves moving an animal or an animal product from different locations, from a source location to a destination location via a couple of intermediate locations. So we also know that today these illegal supply chains, they essentially cross like physical spaces and virtual spaces. And we have all these data scientists and engineers that have all these tools to track supply chains from kind of start to finish. But we actually can't use those tools for wildlife crime because we don't really understand how wildlife crime kind of moves across these physical and virtual spaces. So what we want to do with this challenge question is essentially like build a virtual and spatialized supply chain that helps us to understand the intersections of physical and virtual supply chain. So can you give me an example? Like how does a product move from physical to virtual spaces? Like the live cheetah trade or the illegal cheetah trade for pets or products. Like what does it look like in practice?
Yeah, this is a really tough question, Meredith. And I think the cheetah trade is one that we know more about than other trades for sure. And there's still a lot of mystery involved, right? So just for those who aren't fully aware, a lot of cheetahs are moved from the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Somalia, Somaliland, through Yemen to the UAE, to Saudi Arabia, other Gulf countries. We know a lot about how they're moving physically. Farmers find cheetah cubs, when the mother's off hunting, they sell them to traders. Those traders physically move them over the Gulf of Yemen. And then the whole time, these traffickers in Saudi Arabia and UAE, they're communicating over WhatsApp, over email, text message, calling. So they're using these sort of internet-based communications, right, to link themselves with the transporters and lower level middlemen. Once they move into the UAE and Saudi Arabia, they're then advertised online. They may, again, as we talked about for challenge question one, they may be appearing in social media posts with no comments, no words, just an image, but the image alone signifies the intent to sell and signals something to the buyer that they recognize that these animals are available for sale. Then communication may begin in the comment sections. Hey, PM me and I'll give you a price, that sort of thing. But where these folks really meet is actually pretty difficult. Where does the money trade hands? We're just not really sure. And that's in a trade that's pretty well documented. So when we start talking about things like great apes, birds, lizards, we really don't know. We often see the point of sale and the point of advertisement, but we don't see how those sort of advertisers and I don't want to say local traffickers, but the traffickers that you're going to interact with at a market in Germany, say, for lizards, how that person and those animals are connected to the source locations in Australia and how they are transported, how they move, where, when one space touches the other is a real mystery.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think in the past, wildlife trade has been legal for forever, and it's an old supply chain. But the illegal supply chain is almost being really amplified by internet connectivity, right? And so there's so many benefits associated with internet connectivity, and now internet literacy, right? Like post COVID, everything is more and more online. So we're used to communicating more and more online. Hello, here we are right now, but it's almost like there's like new connections that can be created through social media or virtual spaces. So it's almost like it's like information flows, maybe payment flows. But the like the cheetah or the tortoise or birds or even things like scorpions and insects, they have to be advertised online, right? And then um, maybe there's multiple buyers or something like that, or
Exactly. And
orders
traffickers,
placed.
yeah, and it's really interesting too when you talk about the insects. These are things we don't think about being traded. The same with rare plants. So we know
Right.
that succulent traffickers, for example. In the past, these are people that they're not the stereotypical poacher we think about, right? These may be highly educated, wealthy, Westerners, Asians moving into South Africa, to California, places like that, where we know these rare succulents are found. So in the past, they would locate them through research, right? And then go to these locations themselves, use a GPS, find the rare plants and ship them home. Now what they're doing is finding and linking with local poachers in places with rare animals, rare plants, scorpions, spiders, succulents, cactus, instructing these folks to go out and find species based on GPS coordinates, which again, these like really sophisticated communication devices. So they're finding these species and then they're able to ship them anywhere in the world. So, traffickers have they've almost cut themselves out of them. They don't even need as many middlemen anymore. Like the internet is the middleman. It's really linking folks to often desperate individuals who are willing to then take instruction and harvest species and send them wherever they need to go in the world. So, it's a
It's
big
interesting.
problem.
It is a big problem, and we don't really understand that much about the patterns. We don't understand much about how the networks are structured. And we also, we could know that if we had the data to sort of look across these spaces. So I think this database or this kind of like building a virtual supply chain will help us to start to understand, how much, where, how much, and when different people and different places are kind of connected across space and time.
Exactly. And how they discover one another,
Yeah, yeah. How do you
Um,
make friends online, right?
Exactly, and that's a big thing. And in the past, we know with pangolin trafficking networks in Nigeria, for example, so much of that hard work of trafficking was done in person. Building these relationships. But
Right.
now with COVID, especially, just like so many other industries have moved online, traffickers are now linking somehow with middlemen and suppliers between Africa and Asia,
Yeah.
where in the past those relationships absolutely, I mean, they would have been impossible, right, without that in-person communication and meeting and validation and verification. But now we're seeing much more of a movement to virtual spaces. So we need to understand both the marketing and sales of species, but then how traffickers link with suppliers and middlemen in source countries.
Yeah.
Those are two, separate but definitely related problems, all magnified and intensified by the ease of connectivity over social media and other internet platforms.
Thanks for that. You think there's anything else we should say about this one?
No.
All right.